Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you.
Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 45. I'm back, Ghost Machine fans, and we're stoking the furnace of the radioactive catch-up train as we return to another tale from the Unnamed. It's the Geiger number 9 deep dive. My name is Snoggle, also known as Becky, and I am joined as usual by my very special counterpart, Nick. Nick, how are you doing tonight?
Well, Ghost Machine fans, Snoggle and I are to be wed this November. And so I'm looking forward to the following hour or so of conversation about something other than that.
I have recently been in full-on wedding planning mode.
It's a lot of fun. Or you can read comic books instead. And that's
It's a lot of fun. Send help is what he's really saying, guys.
No, it's good. But we are back with a deep dive. We're catching up on the Geiger action. Remember, we're still a couple issues behind. This is the last joint, I think, on the run with guest artist Paul Pelletier and all that good stuff. So I am excited to talk about it. And again, yeah, you're back. I know you were here when we talked to Peter, obviously, but the episode before that for number 8 was myself and Comic Book Chronicles Rob. So the dynamic duo are reunited. Wanted to do a quick shout out, very cool shout out to Mr. Tommy Halls at World at War Comics. That's a podcast. It's a YouTube channel. It's a super massive Instagram account. He makes tons of cool content. Saw he has like a Kickstarter for a comic he's backing as well and some stuff like that. So he reached out to us and asked if I would come on his show to talk about Ghost Machine. And we did that mainly to talk about the community and all the really neat people that we've met and the things that have come out of that, but also just to talk about Ghost Machine in general. And he's a big fan and all that. So what'd you think of that, Snoggle?
I thought it was amazing. Girl.
Yeah.
You know, I would tell you if I thought it was bad. And then you wouldn't have asked me that question on a podcast. I'm not a good liar.
So check that out, though. He has interviews all the time. He's interviewed Todd McFarlane. He's interviewed Jeff Johns. He's interviewed a lot of really amazing people. And it was pretty cool to be on the show talking about the Ghost Machine, even if I was in the opposite seat of usual. So check him out. World at War Comics. It's on YouTube, lots of other platforms as well. But that's where like the whole video of what we did is, as well as a lot of his other content. But enough about Tommy, because there's news to be had and Snoggles back in the newsroom.
So this episode will air on Wednesday, February 5th, which also happens to be the release date of the Geiger Volume 2 trade paperback, the third printing of Rockefeller's number 1. Hear that again. Third printing. Awesome. The second printing of Rockefeller's number 2 and Rockefeller's number 3. We also have a raffle going on Instagram right now until February 7th for 3 Rogue Exodus mini helmets. And if you didn't see the post, they're super duper cute.
Yeah.
I think they're so cute.
So what you're talking about is that until Friday, February 7th, which is like 72 hours from when this episode is going to air, you still have the opportunity to put your name in the virtual hat for a Rook Exodus mini helmet. Like you could get a Rook helmet, you could get a Swine helmet, you could get a Direwolf helmet, and you could put it on your action figure. And it's super fun. And it'll make the action figure that sits upon your shelf or desk a Warden of Exodus. So make sure to check that out. It's on Instagram. It's on Instagram only, and it's one of those where you have to do all the things like say hi and tag, and it'll tell you in the post what you got to do. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those joints, Black Girl Armory and Standard Up Comics, the folks who have made some amazing stands and who are responsible for the 3D printed helmet that we fashioned to my head for videos. Are also the folks that sent me these awesome mini helmets, which we're just going to give away to all of you wonderful people. But we're not talking about the world of Rook Exodus, right? That's not the universe in the Ghost Machine multiverse.
We're talking about the glowing man.
Joe Glow, Tariq Geiger. What we have to do, though, before we spoil the heck out of this book and talk about who put it together, we want to talk about the 3 covers for Geiger number 9. So that if you go out searching for the book, if you haven't read it yet, you know what your options are, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, we'll talk about it on the creator roll call for the book. But cover A, suffice it to say, is not drawn and colored by the current artist and colorist on this series for this issue. It's drawn by Gary Frank and Brad Anderson. However, that's the usual crew. So it's kind of like, that kind of thing. And this is the cover that was the one that they used to feature like the next issue that's coming, blah, 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 what's going to happen. And it's got the scene where looks like Geiger's attacking Nate for all intents and purposes. What did you think of that, Snoggle?
I love Nate so much, but there have been several periods of time where I'm like, he's too nice. There's something sneaky going on there. So I'm like, oh my gosh, did Nate betray him? And obviously we'll find out in the book, but I think it looked beautiful. It was definitely an intriguing cover to make us want to know, like, oh my God, what is about to happen?
For sure. It made me wonder, because he was like, no, Mr. Geiger, I'm your friend. Like, it seemed to indicate confusion on Tariq's part of some kind. So there are 3 covers, though, and it's fun. They're just all standard covers. There's no ratios or any of that. You just go pick the one you like. So the second cover, did you get a chance to see that one? I think that's the one that I gave you the hard copy of where it's like Geiger fighting a troll. Is that the one you got? Mm-hmm. You think that's an Oregon person on there? Because it looks like they might have pants at one point. Not just a loincloth.
It could be. I would assume so, but it definitely looks like a troll. I think it's pretty gnarly looking creature no matter what. I like the small detail, you may not have noticed it, but on the creature's left arm, it has a thumb that's just like in the weirdest spot. So I'm going to assume Oregon person. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like those little details I thought made it really cool and special. And like, ew.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool style. And that's by Ryan Sook. That's Ryan Sook, Sook. I've heard of that person, I think. And I think so. I think I'm like in the comic book world or whatever.
Well, I've heard of him now.
There you go. Boom. Welcome to the party, Ryan. So there's a third cover too, and this is my favorite. I believe the gentleman's name is Yannick Paquette. And it's like mostly a profile of Geiger, but this is also one that connects to one that's a Redcoat book where it's Redcoat sitting there with like a bunch of futuristic weapons and you set them next to each other and they connect. And we actually used these 2 covers in one of our videos that we put out over the weekend talking about those characters because it's just so cool to me. It's pretty intense.
It is intense.
So Brad Anderson did the colors on this one too. So you can, I can kind of feel that. I don't know. It just seems like what we're used to seeing in a great way. He's glowing. That being said, it's time to dive in, and that makes this your official spoiler pause for Geiger number 9. Can you tell us who the amazing people are that made this fine comic book?
Well, we've got the artist, Paul Pelletier, inks by Andrew Hennessy, our colorist, John Calise, written by Jeff Johns, and Gary Frank and Brad Anderson did do the final 2 pages. And we cannot forget our king of letters, Rob Lee.
He did all the letters. These other people be splitting this book up. Rob's like, nah, just lift it all. It's fine.
And I would say, like, one of the best editors in the biz, Brian Cunningham.
That's what Peter was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we trust Peter.
Trust in Peter Tomasi. There you go. So I'm excited to talk about this book. For me, the world of the Unnamed is the paramount place in Ghost Machine. Like, I really love all the other books, but what really got me into it, like we talked about, is that I like the shared universe, and I like the time-spanning shared universe, and we get more and more of that. But I don't know about you, but right from the jump, and you can catch this up to speed, remind everybody, we just met a new character, a new antagonist, although he doesn't last very long. But Paul's art, like, keeps growing on me. I really liked it as this issue began.
In the first, we get the first page and the kids are looking worried. Everyone's looking worried except for Barney and Tariq, who are like, it's time to battle. I think that with the art, there is a lot of unspoken emotion that comes through very well. The second panel, the way Nate's face just looks worried, like, not again. He probably just wants a day or two of just reading some books and eating some just, normal breakfast. Which is probably why I like him. I can relate. I don't think I'd make it in this world. But then we turn the page, and this splash page is...
Yeah, and I love how there's no doubt where he's like, Nate, you go take the kids. Barney's with me to attack this large mass of armored people.
Oh, yeah.
and I like, I know that we've seen it before, but it seems as though the glow of Barney's eyes are more prominent here. Like, it feels more like, radioactive sidekick.
I also like when he's glowing, I almost feel like these little dots are like atoms, and that, tickles my brain in a really good way. Like, ooh.
Oh, like the nice. Little, like the way that it kind of reminds me of Dr. Manhattan and Watchmen. You know what I'm talking about?
Nice. I do.
Cool.
And then, we, after the splash page, and we can go into the details, I just do think these next pages after the splash page, without a lot of words, it shows some, a good battle scene and the emotions behind it.
But, Snoggle, I don't remember who this golden armored fiend is. I thought the King of Camelot perished many years ago in a miniseries with Geiger. Who is this person? Remind me.
It's apparently the Queen's new husband.
The new beau. Because if you remember, the old king was actually the Queen's son. And this fella, he's got similar, really not, another gold suit of armor, right? But we find out as he's going and tries to break his sword that he's like, do you think I came unprepared? My sword is made of metal that was forged with titanium and tungsten. And there's this emphasis of if we remember, he's with the seven remnants, who are the people that we used to refer to as the warlords of Las Vegas, who met at the beginning of issue 8. And they're also who is running in behind him. You can see Safari Bob's hat. You can see a gangster looking guy because there's some people there for Bonnie Borden. And then we're going to see more of that later. But point being that it's really clear that like he knows about him. He's got a sword that can't be damaged by, radioactivity or that type of heat. And he's there with a big group of people. But then we do have like a brief second, right, where you have Nate making a decision that he's going to choose to disobey him.
Well, I like that before we even turn the page, Geiger is getting stabbed with the titanium and tungsten sword, right? And you get that little box that says, Mr. Geiger needs my help, or needs help. Mr. Geiger needs help. So, like you said, we do turn the page and he's like, he won't ask for it, but he needs my help. So I have to go. And I think that's another reason why I just think this is such a selfless and daring character.
Yeah, even to the point where he tells the kids what to do with Zigzag if he doesn't come back. So he's acknowledging the level of danger.
Yeah, he's like, he likes people as much as I do, which Zigzag, I think, is like about to give him a lick and does a cute little bray sound. And then as he's running away, he's like, you kids be good now. I gotta skedaddle.
Yeah, it's a very cinematic moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got him knocked down after stabbing him with the super sword.
Mm-hmm.
But then Tariq decides that he's gonna test to determine if all the others are as well armored. So the implication is that his armor is reinforced the same way as the sword. And it's very clear that he kills a bunch of knights real quick. But then it's like there's reinforcement more about 2 more things that say like this king guy, for whatever reason, has been enabled with a lot of knowledge about him. And one of those things is he knows that because Geiger's like, well, don't you know what I did to the last king? And he's like, yeah, I do. You're not going to do that here because we're in like a town full of people. And so he knows that about him. And then also this guy comes up who now has like a Ghostbuster blaster of boron dust, which is like kind of neat. And mentions the electrician, which is cool. I like that reference to that character, even though the character wasn't around long. Like everybody will always remember that character. And it disables him, but it's just they're so ready to take him out. And if you remember the reasons behind it from that dinner table scene at the beginning of the last issue, there's one of them just like wants his brain. One of them wants to mount his head on the wall. One of them wants him dead as revenge. It's just, there's no, it's just pretty much to just do it. But they go to all these lengths and they have all these advantages, right? And they get all the way there. And I did not expect him like to just get saved here. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Or as he was like, as Nate was trying to save him, Nate perishes or something happens to Barney, which makes him go into like super mode. But I do think before like the waters gushed on him and the boron dust is like, which looks really cool. Like someone hits him in the head, which, oof, painful. Like punches them with, it looks like a very armored metal fist. And then the king says, you'll be my wedding gift to the queen.
Their arrangement is strange because like the bio page just kind of explains that he came about and why he's an aggressive leader. He is like a military tactician and all this. But if I recall, it doesn't indicate like any kind of why some nuptials happened between him and the queen. Like if where the romance came from. I think it even says like he appeared slightly after the prince died, or the son that was the king, who
Yeah,
essentially
he's taking advantage.
something.
Can't blame them. They're all bad people apparently in Vegas. So Nate saves them. He's like, I didn't know what to do about the boron dust last time, but this time I got you.
Yeah, and it made you think like, oh, so did he read about that? Did they talk? Or I guess it's because that he knew he had to clean them off before,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how rapidly you can do that. And then we do get confirmation that yeah, that armor is tougher, but his faceplate is certainly not any tougher than anybody else's, because he face melts the dude just like he face melted the first king, except remember the first king, he scarred him and then he killed him in the second fight. This guy just kills him in the first fight.
One, I think he's also like extremely angry, so maybe that elevates like his glowing effect.
Yeah.
But like, how cool to I burned the last king as a warning, but no one listened, so no more warnings. He's like, I am gonna kill you. And you see his face melting away, which what a cute little panel there. But I'm gonna ask you this, Nick Wilson. Do you think there's something that the 7 remnants actually want with him that is different than what we've just kind of seen? Like a reveal of something, because it's like the queen, Borden, they, and then he's just gone.
Well, the thing you're talking about is right as he's about to die. He says, wait, I'll tell you what the 7 remnants want with you. The queen, Borden, they, ... and then he melts. And so really what you're saying is there more to it than the guy's head, the guy's brain, and revenge, like I was saying? And I think
there is.
well, I think it's a very good question, because the only reason that Jeff, in my opinion, would write it that way would be to indicate that there is a piece that the reader is ignorant of. I wasn't trivializing it to the point either where I thought that's truly the only thing that they want. It seems like it has to do with some political moves as well, because they're in opposition of the custodian and President Griffin and Milky Way. It seemed like its sound was allied with them, so that's another faction. And then there's Geiger and Nate and the Animal Kingdom too. So I I immediately wanted to know that as well, where that's going, and I think that is a very intuitive point you have made. And he melted his face.
He melts his face. What a cool panel. You just kind of see his face falling apart. And then Nate realizes, and like you see the panel where Tariq, that is so cool, by the way. It's just like,
like where he seems
because
to be losing control.
He's really not like he's glowing brighter than typical, which, Nate has seen him, take the rod out more than once. And he even, Mr. Geiger, you're light. Like, ooh, Geiger drops his rods completely.
He does.
And forgets about him.
I don't think he's had them in a bit because of how he got boroned. And so they're nowhere nearby, and he's getting angrier and angrier. And then Nate notices them, snags them, and goes for him. And that's where we get the moment that speaks to that A cover that Gary and Brad did. Remember the one we talked about? Yeah, because he does get him, and it looks like it hurts.
I know. I will say, when I first turned the page and saw die in that panel, I gasped. Oh no, not Nate.
You know what's funny is I heard you gasp from the other room while you were reading this, and that's not the panel I thought you gasped at.
Oh. Which one did you think I audibly gasped at?
I'll tell you when you get there. We're not there.
Oh, okay.
But no, you're talking about he gets punched in the chest. It even melts some of his armor, shoots him off, and he hits a car or a truck or something. And then you get that like literal almost recreation of the scene on that cover where he's like, "No, no, I'm your friend." Like as he hits him too, it creates like a line of flesh, the boron, like where it struck him. And everybody in the town has run away to take shelter because they're all worried that he's gonna explode more. And then Nate's able to get the rods in, and then it as a result of a couple little notes here as the why he has the opportunity to put the rods in. He gets distracted by
Barney.
yeah, and you see Barney's two heads like completely clamp on the arm, and then it disables him for a moment, and he can put the rods in, and then right away Barney's mouth is bloodied red because it's still like he's still bit on radioactivity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like literally melting. Like he's bleeding from that. Yeah, so it's pretty intense. And then obviously we see them leaving the town,
Mm-hmm.
and the people are like wanting them to go, and everybody they don't even want to fight it. But I thought you gasped at this panel where, as he's leaving, he talks to the principal web guy that was kind of like the book burning guy. It wasn't a
Yeah, I felt like this outro speech that Geiger gives to him was such a mic drop moment for Tariq. And I'm just going to read it. My kids were trapped in a shelter with their mother for years. I protected it from scavengers instead of trying to find a way to get them out safely. I was convinced the radiation made it impossible to open the door and let them out. But the truth was, I thought it was better they were locked away. I should have worried about preparing them instead of protecting them so that they'd have the tools to survive this messed up world. And maybe even a fighting chance to change it. And then he's like, adios. I mean, that's like such an amazing moment of growth for him.
because it's accomplishes two things for us. That's where I thought you went was when he says that he should have been preparing his family instead of hiding them away. So for him, it's hopefully a calming moment so that he can not kill Nate. And also, it is his way of saying you should let these people learn so they can prepare to fight for this or at least whatever. And he never says it, but you got to think eventually somebody's coming that's worse than any of these people, or at least a larger force. You know, like if you take any of the characters out of Mad Max and you put them in and they find out about that tunnel to Grover's Corners is not going to be around that much longer.
Mm-hmm.
You tell a couple of Oregon people how to find Grover's Corners is not going to be around much longer. So it's not like this guy just being like, no, just don't go out there and it'll be okay. Like, no, somebody's gonna come, man. Even if you were lucky enough that no Oregon people ever found you, Nightcrawlers will eventually come. Like stuff will come. You can't live in this tiny little bubble. But they bounce, and like as you turn the page and you see a different artist and colorist, because these last two pages, if you recall, Ghost Machine fans, we said they were done by Gary and Brad. It's a departure and a return.
I think that they look great. I love the emotion in Tariq's eyes when he's apologizing. Because I even think that was a big deal for Tariq to begin to apologize. You can tell he's just like actually suffering.
And it's weird, right? Because it's not a Jekyll and Hyde thing, or it's like, hey man, you need to calm down. I get so mad. It's more like the power seems to just make it hard. But when we talked to Jeff about this, though, it was really more about him. It was more about his, like, not Jeff, but more about Tariq's struggle between being a vengeful, bloodthirsty, like, aggressive guy and also a being of good and, like, for the people because he's done things to help innocents many times.
Yeah.
And that duality is challenging. So I don't know. Yeah, no, they're driving away in their school bus. I feel like that
Nothing's going to stop us now, Mr. Geiger. Yeah, right. Nate, knock on some wood because that is foreshadowing if I've ever seen it. 45 miles.
Oh yeah, 45 miles to Lewiston. They're on their way to find a character we're going to talk about next time.
I bet some intense stuff is going to happen in the next 45 minutes for those two men.
Oh, absolutely. And I love these last 8 panels on the last page because it's that unnamed vibe, that tapestry of the unnamed at the end of an issue vibe that you get at some early Junkyard Joe and Geiger issues, 80-page giant. It looks to me as though we know that almost all of these events take place in the same time that Geiger and Tariq are in right now, because we see the Queen, who's mad and eating a bunch of chicken. We see President Griffin and the Custodian, who we know are in this era because of we've seen them in previous issues. We see Junkyard Joe walking onto the scene of the battle in Grover's Corners, so we know that's current. We see Simon in a bar, and he says they call him the Glowing Man. Anyone know where I can find him? That we can assume is the same era as Geiger because he's calling them that. But then we have a panel with a gentleman in Civil War garb. He looks to be wielding a rifle that may be a little more modern than the Civil War. And he's like in a swamp. And he says, "This can't be right. I've gone too far." So either that's a swamp in that future post unknown war, or that's a scene of the Northerner having gone too far back in the past where there's nothing built yet. So I don't know. But that's the Northerner right there, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, 100%. I love the fact that, it goes from nothing's going to stop us now, Mr. Geiger, to the next page where literally everyone is trying to stop them and find them.
Yeah.
We've got the Queen and all the people still left from that situation. The President, Redcoat, most likely the Northerner. And I love these little clinks because they foreshadow for when we turn the page and see who do we see, Nick Wilson?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, how that means he has a way of tracking him. Because to get into Grover's Corners, he would have had to follow in, you know what I mean? So it's curious. But yeah, he's kind of just one of those characters. You see Junkyard Joe, makes you feel good. That's how it works.
It does.
I want to briefly touch on the bio for Zigzag. I'd like to point out a couple of things. Other than it's charming that there's a bio for Zigzag, the 3-eyed zebra. Under his abilities, it says he's got some genetic mutations, obviously, but it says he matures at an accelerated rate, growing larger and stronger than any ordinary zebra. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the reason for that is because they need to make sure that Nate can get a steed ASAP. And that's fine with me. Second, it says his third eye, situated on his forehead, grants him unparalleled vision and heightened awareness, making him an exceptional tracker and formidable ally.
I thought it was very cute as well. Or not really cute, but just to show that there is hope in this desolate wasteland that they're all surrounded by. When they said Zigzag exhibits an extraordinary sense of empathy, a rare gift in their fractured world, and a testament to the enduring spirit of life in the face of annihilation.
That is all the things.
All the things. Go Zigzag!
Well, I enjoyed that issue. That's the end of Paul Pelletier's run. I'm going to check out more of his work. I really like him. I have caught the Paul Pelletier bug. And we have an excellent listener mail.
Listener mail.
Listener mail. Listener mail. Listener mail. Mail, 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 mail. Do you want to read it?
All right. This email comes from Christal29 Sparty, who asks, I have seen a Redcoat metal cover promoted for MegaCon, but no Ghost Machine presence. Can you tell me the cons Ghost Machine will be at this year? Will you two be attending any cons? By the way, go green.
Go white.
OHIO, national cheers. Just saying.
Did they?
Of football. Yes, they won. Everything.
I really didn't. I didn't know. I'm not just saying that to be a hater. I really didn't know.
I know you didn't know.
I'll take it. That's okay. So the Redcoat metal cover that I believe you're talking about, it is a Francis Manipool cover, but we first saw it as a Redcoat variant promo that was foil at a previous con last year, since it's 2025 now. And I've seen that promo. It is, I think it's like through a retailer or somebody, but because it is for MegaCon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for a metal version of that. So that's epic. I like the metals. I have a lot of those. I like those. I would totally want to get one of those. But I think what the question is, and this is something I was speaking about with Jason Hershowitz, the famed Jason Hershowitz Millhouses, who's been on the show twice and was at the 2 signings recently in New York and New Jersey, I think. And so it is a super cool book, but it doesn't, like, there's not been any announcement that Ghost Machine is going to be at MegaCon, which is coming up soon. And so might just be one of those you can snag through, like, whoever is the person that's got it, like the retailer that has it. But in terms of what I've seen and heard so far, I think it's just New York and San Diego are the ones we've heard a lot about. But what you have to remember with a lot of this stuff is, depending on what part of the country you're in, or even if you're just near a somewhat major metropolitan area that has an annual con, you should still take a look at the lineup and see if anybody from, like, Ghost Machine is going. Because I know, for example, Peter Tomasi does cons as just Peter Tomasi and stuff like that. Because just because these folks have a exclusive agreement, many of them have an exclusive agreement with Ghost Machine, doesn't preclude them from appearing at a convention of their own volition. It just, they work with Ghost Machine exclusively, is my understanding of it. And not all of them have that arrangement anyway. But you can still see your favorite Ghost Machine creators out there doing something, I'm sure. But what do you think, Snoggle? People have asked us this before, if we're going to be going to these conventions.
If there's one in Cincinnati, I'll go. I think you and I have both been to a con of some sort in the Cincinnati, Kentucky area. We went to one that was like in Cincy and one that was in Newport. I mean, we just got a little guy, but we do definitely want to go. It would have to work with both of our work schedules, Bruce's immense sport and activity schedule. So
yeah, it'd be super fun to go to one of them.
I could also see us go to, if there was
Chicago.
a con in Chicago, because we have family that lives up there.
Yeah, maybe Fan Expo Chicago
Mm-hmm.
is the one that we might be able to do. Cristal 29's party. Yeah, we'll find some cons to go to and we'll let you know. But either way, the Ghost Machine is definitely going to be at the New York and the San Diego ones. Is what I understand. So thanks very much for that listener mail. If you want to send us one of those, feel free to do so at ghostmachinefans@gmail.com. As requested, Andy, we will tell you that the next issue we are going to cover is Redcoat number 8. So if you want to read ahead, you want to be ready, we're going to talk about that issue, which is the one that features the bloody Bender family. So ready to rock on that next week. And don't forget, you got to enter the raffle. If you haven't entered the raffle for the miniature Rook Exodus helmets, you can still do that until 11 p.m. Pacific date time on Friday the 7th. That's this Friday, February 7th. If you want to check out all of our other content right now, go to www.ghostmachinefans.com to do that. And hey, there's a whole lot of action on the wiki. We really appreciate all the new contributors. If you would like to join us, just shoot us a DM on the Facebook, on the Instagram, on the whatever, and I'll let you know how to do it. It is super easy to do. We would love for you to be a part of that. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight on the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast.
Podcast.